Well, today marks 2 years since the World Health Organization labeled the outbreak of COVID-19 a pandemic. And behind us is a tweet that actually started it all right here. The director of the World Health Organization, or WHO, announcing the pandemic.
And what had first been detected in China as an illness that caused shortness of breath and a fever now spread across the world. And after that came new policies from our political leaders. Only a couple days after, President Trump would declare a nationwide emergency.
To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency.
From there, people would lose their lives, their jobs, and their in-person community. And this got us thinking. In the past couple of years, the pandemic changed our lives so much, and we wanted to know how historians think this time will be remembered.
And Yvonne got a chance to speak with Dr. Jeremy Suri, a professor of public affairs and history from UT Austin.
Yes, I did, and he tells us the pandemic will be seen as a turning point.
This has been a war, especially for many people who are dealing with suffering within their families, work changes, and that trauma will stay with them. There are some positive sides. I think people are learning to be more resilient, and I think they're learning to value members of their families and their communities in ways they didn't before.
That is so true, right? I mean, you know what's important to you.
Do you forget how important our hairstylists were when we couldn't go to them for a year and a half?
Yeah. Everybody had some kind of guys had like a rat tail. I mean, but it was interesting though, because you realize how much, and also that human connection. I really missed that.
Hugs.
Yes, hugs. And that community created through the technology that was developed that made this different than, say, the pandemic of 1918. We had Zoom, social media, using credit cards and curbside pickup for restaurants, and that new technology really stemmed from the pandemic. But Dr. Suri also believes that technology and wealth in the U.S. will lead to more questions about how our country handled the pandemic, from an administration that denied science to healthcare advisors that were trying their best.
I think historians will note the paradox that the United States, which is the wealthiest and best resourced country in the world, nonetheless suffered more deaths than many other societies with fewer capabilities.
That's a good point, and he says that when people look back at this point in history, there will be more than just one type of person sharing their experiences.
I think one of the things that's important is we will have people from different kinds of groups writing about the pandemic. And so those from communities that suffered more, those were poorer communities, minority communities, and others, they will be part of this story. And I think it will be part of our larger discussion about civil rights, equality, and diversity.
Now, this is something we can already see in data from the start of the pandemic. In April of 2021, an article from the Pew Research Center was able to pinpoint how Asian, Black, and Hispanic people reported more negative experiences because of their race since the pandemic began.
And the second line shows where 1/3 of Asian adults reported that they feared that they would be the subject of racial slurs or an attack. And Dr. Suri told us because of what we as a society endured, the pandemic will remain relevant.
The pandemic will not be a side issue, it will be a central issue, because it obviously affected people with different incomes and different experiences in very different ways. It highlighted and exacerbated many inequalities, and that will be something that particularly people from disadvantaged groups will write about in the future.
You know, Rob, also now as cases in Central Texas continue to go down, we move forward as a different society with still a lot to learn. But again, the pandemic will be relevant.
It will be absolutely always remembered that, and the lessons that we learn and the relationships that we care more about now than we did before, like you said.
I find myself talking about, pre-pandemic. I would actually do say pre-pandemic.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it was a whole different world.
It was. I miss hugs. Hugs were great.
I know.